What is the scariest thing you've ever seen while driving at night? Driving down at a lane divided highway. I came up to a couple semis and went into the left lane to pass. I did a shoulder check to get back into the right lane when I saw headlights in front of me in my lane. The car was going the wrong way. I managed to swerve into the ditch. Felt like I was mere centimeters from death. Thought my wife's scream would be the last thing I ever hear. And I never want to hear it again. The semis I passed all pulled to the shoulder to come check on us. Didn't see the car anywhere. I think they just kept going. Had to pull into a gas station after and collect myself. Edit, rephrase to make less confusing. Someone I knew locally came across a Jeep that had just crashed into the ditch on a highway at night. Flipped on its top, wheels still turning kind of thing. He was the first on scene, so-called 911, and ran down into the ditch. The driver, who was badly mangled, had been tossed from the car and was dying. This guy held him, and the driver died in his arms. The weirdest part of it all was that he found out the next day that it was his cousin, but he hadn't been able to recognize him. I hope the guy who died was comforted by knowing a family member was with him. I think just to be held by anyone. Sometimes it's all we can do for each other. I was following a gray Toyota Tundra in a massive blizzard through Montana on McDonald Pass. He was going pretty quick most of the way, but must have been unfamiliar with how steep the final few miles are. He got away from me as I slowed down to about 35. Not 5 minutes later I passed his tire marks in the fresh snow that went off the side of the mountain. Pulled over and looked down to see his truck upside down and on fire about 300 yards down. Called 911. He didn't die, but was burnt up pretty bad. Sad and scary, and don't go 50 in the snow just because you have a truck or 4WD. I've heard it said before, but I'll say it again. Four-wheel drive isn't four-wheel stop. An asshole overtaking a petrol tanker around a blind corner, coming my way. Scared the shit out of me. I woke up in the driver's seat to the sound of rumble strips and the guardrail coming right at me. Well, that's why the rumble strips are there. I thought it was so blind people can gauge where they are in the lane. Dad was driving at night, and I was looking out the window and saw 2 red pinpricks in the cornfield, and it followed us. I told my dad about it and he said, in the most calm casual tone for this situation, "Those are cornfield demons. Stay in the car and you'll be okay." Cue me freaking the hell out when he got out of the car not too long after to check a tire before getting back in. I'm still not sure if that was an actual thing or if he was using a situation to his advantage to teach me to not do anything stupid like that at night. Either ways, it worked, and I still have no idea what those 2 pinpricks were. Your dad is epic. He used to tell stories like that all the time to teach me to stay out of places I shouldn't belong, lol. I guess he figured simply telling me no wouldn't suffice. One of the other stories he told was about this native named Cottonmouth, who was a great warrior who dipped his arrows in cottonmouth venom, hence his name, and one day he snapped and went on a mass murder spree until someone took him out with one of his own arrows. He said that now, if you're caught in the woods alone, if you hear hoofbeats, Cottonmouth is coming to get ya. Living in an area where people rode horses plus deer, I believe this 100% the one time I strayed too far while playing, and zoop. Back in the yard I went. Whilst driving from Morelia to Ciudad Hidalgo, in Mexico, back in the 80s we had 2 ways to get to Ciudad Hidalgo, which was the National Road or the old National Road, which was called Mil Cumbres. Mil Cumbres basically means 1000 curves. That stretch of road literally had 1000 curves. So a lot of people would get motion sickness when on that road. One evening on a way back to my grandparents, who lived in Ciudad Hidalgo, my grandfather was driving, and he loved taking Mil Cumbres because it had really nice views and he just really loved driving that road. But since we had a new national road, not a lot of people use that road anymore, so it was kind of desolate with the exception of passing 1 or 2 little towns. It was dusk so soon that meant that being on such a desolate road in the mountains, we would be in complete darkness on the road with no many other cars on the same stretch of road. It took 2 hours to get to the town on that road, so maybe 45 minutes into the drive it had already gotten really dark, and as we were driving my grandfather started slowing down. I was sitting in the back seat because my grandmother was in the front with my grandfather, so I kind of stood over the front chairs to see why he was slowing down. That's when I saw a hug tree log blocking the road. My grandfather came to a stop and immediately started going in reverse to turn around and get out of the immediately. After we turned, my grandfather stepped on the gas pedal and I was sort of thrown back into the back seat. I immediately turned around to see if I could anything, and as we were speeding away, I could see men, very dimly since the light from the tail lights from the car were starting to get dimmer and dimmer, coming from out of the adjacent trees next to tree log on the road with flashlights and guns. We were about to get robbed, and thanks to my grandfather's quick thinking and taking action immediately, we avoided it. That was the last time I was ever on that road. Frogs. Fucking everywhere. Like hundreds of frogs all over the road. Damn it Moses. Damn it Kermit. I slammed the brakes once because I saw a deer in my peripheral vision. Upon closer inspection, it was a mounted deer head on a stick in the middle of the woods. Slammed the gas after I realized that might have been a setup by game wardens to catch illegal poachers at night. What do? Sit somewhere and watch, or do they usually have cameras set up? In my state they sit hidden down the road. They got these mechanical deer things that look pretty real, and they try to get people to shoot them, and then they get arrested for poaching, I guess. I was on I-70 in Colorado going towards Utah, pulled over at a gas station at 8 p.m. Fueling up, I noticed a couple of attractive women pumping gas. On the other side of the pump was the man in his late 40s, just staring at these young women without notice of anything else going on around him. I walk inside to go grab some food for the next few hours of driving. When I come out, I see both the younger women's car and the older man's truck are gone. I decided to hang out at the gas station for the next hour to catch a little sleep before hitting the road again. After driving for a few hours, I was speeding heavy. I pull over at yet another gas station. The young women are there getting gas and eating some food on a picnic table. Looked like they had been there for a while. I didn't see any sign or the man in the truck, but can't say I was looking very hard for it. Well, here is where it got creepy as hell. Can't say I didn't stare at them a bit. I mean, they were good looking women. As I'm watching them leave, I see in the next parking lot over some headlights turn on, and it's the same man as before. He leaves when the women leave once again. Okay, that's a bit weird, but could just be a coincidence as there weren't many places to pull over. I leave a few minutes later and catch up to them. Now this guy's riding their ass with his high beams on. I decided to slow down and stay a distance behind the truck. 10 minutes or so later, the women pull over once again to most likely get this guy off their ass. With a sign of relief, the truck keeps going and I continue on my way. About 1 mile down the road, the guy just pulls off to the side of the highway. So I pull off a mile or so down the road again. Sure enough, the women drive by and the guy is still following them. At this point, we are out in the middle of nowhere and too many coincidences have happened. I called the cops to alert them, and about 15 minutes the cops pulled the guy over. I could have just seen too many horror movies that started like this and overreacted, but you never know. Better safe than sorry. It was a good call to alert the police. Even if it was a coincidence, no harm would have been done to the guy, and if it wasn't, you might have just saved those two girls' lives. Driving to work at 4:30 a.m. and seeing a cyclist with his head split open and brains on the road. My friend and I were walking home at about 2 a.m. one night about 15 years ago. We see this car going in the opposite direction, clearly going way past the speed limit. As he's passing us, we see him go up on the curb and hit someone walking on the opposite sidewalk, decapitating them. This was before we had cell phones and everything was closed because it was such a tiny town. We ran as fast as we could to the nearest house, about 15-20 minutes away, and banged on their door until they opened it so we could call the cops. I still see it in my sleep sometimes. Saw a large pickup truck hit a pedestrian which sent them flying about 20 feet forward. The truck then ran the person over and kept going. I was a teenager and didn't have a phone. I remember knocking on a random person's door for help, crying and yelling. I think the guy at the door probably thought someone was trying to murder me. I was fetching someone from his workplace. Had to go through some fields, and some parts of the road were dark. I saw a thin long object wiggling at an upright position at the side of the road in front of me. Totally freaked me out. I thought I was finally experiencing something extraordinary. As I got closer I realized it was a tail of a cow. It must have escaped from some field and was hanging around at the side of the road. The cow itself was black, the tail slightly lighter in color. That's why I only saw the tail moving first without seeing the whole cow first. Oh my. Yes dear, that's just old Bess's bottom, not a ghost worm. A dead, butchered horse laying in the road. Someone had completely skinned and butchered a horse, took the choice pieces of meat, and just dumped it on the highway. I almost crashed into it. WTF. A lonely abandoned shack with a bunch of arrows pointing to it, saying come in. Bruh, although these types of traps only exist in cartoons. With a bowl of seeds labeled free bird food. See, no one really notices the big boulder over the bowl. I used to deliver pizza and often had deliverers right at midnight when we closed. One time, late at night, I'm driving back to the store through a small neighborhood. Up ahead I see something. It's perfectly spherical, bright / shiny thing, just hovering about 6 feet off the ground. Not moving at all. I pull up very slowly. Still doesn't move. Still can't comprehend what I'm looking at. Just this shiny hovering orb in the road at midnight. At this point my curiosity has overridden my fear. I'm the guy in the horror movie who dies first, because I just gotta know. Either I die, or I get a cool story, right? So I hop out of the car and slowly walk up to it. I'm right in front of it and still can't understand what I'm seeing. So I reach out and touch it. It's a balloon. One of those foil birthday balloons with the street lights shining on it, making it look weird out of context in the middle of the night on an empty road. This is my favorite response because it feels like exactly how I would react.